Hey everybody, it's Anna J. Walner with the Author Library, and today I am pleased to have with me author Wendy Hawkin. Wendy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm a Vancouver writer, Canadian, and I write what I call mythic fiction. I have a series we're going to talk about. Hi,
I
thanks for
will.
having me here today.
Yes, thank you so much for taking time out of your day today to sit down and chat with me. Um, and the Hollystone Mysteries is your series, and you've just released the fourth in the book, which is To Kill a King. But can you tell us a little bit about the series itself?
Sure, I can. I'd love to. So Hollystone is a small Wicca coven. They are intent on saving the planet, which we all know is in dire need right now of saving. They celebrate seasonal Sabbats, so equinoxes and solstice and harvest days, and they perform elaborate theatrical rituals, basically, in the woods. Sincera, who is the high priestess, she created the coven, and she leads the rituals with her high priest, Estrada. So after I wrote the third book, I realized that Estrada had emerged as the lead protagonist and that the whole series chronicles his personal growth. He's a bisexual stage magician who regularly appears at a Gothic nightclub in Vancouver, and his desire for freedom often gets him into trouble. His biggest inner conflict is freedom or family. He wants both. So I think people can relate to that.
So
Maybe
those
not
are
women so much, but some some men can relate to that.
so
Um,
those are a couple of the central themes. And it's funny how some of those characters that you didn't foresee becoming as prominent in the series sometimes sneak up on you and take center stage.
because I don't plan.
Right.
So yes, so I don't sit down and go, okay, I'm going to write 6 books and this is what's going to happen in each of them. So I just listen to my muses. Estrada's one of my muses, so he's become kind of a friend for me. So I get into a meditative state and I ask, what happens next? And they show me, literally show me. So I often see a film on the screen in my mind, and I also hear conversations. Then I take all of that and I sit and turn it into text. So that's my job out of all of this. So because of this, I end up writing cross genre. So each book has got crime and murder. The first 2 are murder mysteries. The third's a thriller. And the fourth is the one I just did, a prehistoric time travel thriller.
Oh,
So in each,
wow.
yeah, in each book, Estrada travels somewhere to save somebody he cares about. And I travel there myself to soak up the energy of the landscape and pick up the finer details you can only get by going somewhere and visiting a scene. So
Isn't
just,
that
yeah, I
it's
can
so
just
much
sort of
fun?
run. Yeah, it is fun. I can just tell you a little bit about, as we move into To Kill a King, the gist of where things have gone, if you like.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
I'm enthralled. I'm just sitting here listening.
Yeah, I have kind of created a world, so it's a lot of fun. The first book, To Charm a Killer, the coven spins a charm to catch a serial killer that's been killing witches in Vancouver. And a young girl gets caught up in it. So she ends up fleeing to Ireland, and Estrada ends up going there because they think the killers followed her there. Great reason for me to go to Ireland.
True.
In To Sleep with Stones, Dylan, who's another Hollystone witch, is working on an archaeological dig in southwest Scotland with Sorcha. He gets into a kerfuffle with a nasty Glasgow journalist, and he ends up murdered and left in a cairn. Not Dylan, the journalist. Okay. So after spending summer solstice sleeping with the Ballymenach standing stones, Dylan gets arrested for murder. And he ends up in this horrible prison in Scotland. He calls on Estrada to solve the murder and get him out of prison. And of course, Estrada hops on a plane and off he goes to Glasgow. While Estrada's in Scotland, his lover, Michael Stryker, who's back in Canada, moping around, gets targeted by a vampire. And Michael survives this, but angers the vampire, who takes his revenge by stealing Estrada's baby in the third book.
Ooh.
Hmm.
This is when you knew that Estrada was really the
The
main
key.
focus, because
Yeah.
throughout the entire series, he had been growing in his character to kind of take that lead. He sounds like the kind of friend that I want to
He's
get
awesome. He's awesome.
to definitely get me out of trouble if I had to.
Oh yeah, and notice that I slipped in there that he's a dad now too, so that
Yes, I did.
is cool. I won't tell you who mom is, but anyway, the coven ends up sailing by yacht up the BC coast to rescue baby Lucy. This is in To Render a Raven, and just a little spoiler that the ravens are vampires.
Ah,
Hmm.
I like that. Very gothic association with vampires, that kind of has come about, the Raven and the gothic vampire.
Hmm.
So
And also the Northwest Coast, the Raven is the trickster character on the Northwest Coast, right? So that really fits. So while they're flying around, everybody just thinks they're ravens. They just fit right in and they can do whatever they want. So it's interesting. So the last book, To Kill a King, spins off To Sleep with Stones, which is the second book. Sorka, our archaeologist, ends up time traveling to 200 BC Ireland and meets an Iron Age king she knows will be ritually murdered and left in a bog for 2,000 years, because she's an archaeologist, so she knows about this. The king is based on a real bog body, and yeah, you can go see him. He's here in our world. He was unearthed from Croghan in 2003, and he's on display in the National Museum of Ireland. At least his torso is.
So there is that leads me to one of my other questions. The series is set in Vancouver and takes place in modern times and in time travel as well. But how did you weave together the thrilling aspects of magical realism, time travel, and the urban setting of today? I mean, that's a lot. That takes talent.
Well, Hollystone is really like an everyday world, but I entwine it with the mythic. So the magic kind of happens spontaneously. It's like an interwoven tapestry with myth. There's a couple of key settings in Vancouver. One is Pegasus, which is the Gothic nightclub. So that's a lot of thrilling stuff happens there. It was a lot of fun creating this nightclub, trust me. And another is the area around Bunsen Lake, north of Port Moody, where I used to live. So the coven performs their theatrical rituals in the woods there. And Maggie, who's the young woman who gets caught up in the charm, lives there in the house at Hawksclaw Lane. And Sincera ends up renting that house later. So they end up kind of moving to that setting and working in the woods with these characters, where that's how the magic realism comes in. So Sincera calls down Hecate, for example, the goddess speaks through her. They're all gifted. Sincera's a psychic, but she and Estrada can both raise fire energy. He's also a shaman. He can shapeshift. He can get into the body of a raven. Dylan can touch stones and communicate with them, which is why he's out sleeping with the stones when he gets arrested for murder. And yeah, he envisions whatever the stones experienced. So that's kind of fun. And then all through the references are mythic references all through the books. So I've got Irish fairies, vampires, gods. The ancient Celtic god Cernunnos is one of the key characters, and he's the one that takes them back to Iron Age Ireland. So Estrada conjures him up with the Celtic Oak King when Dylan's in prison during a ritual, and they end up, in a kind of a relationship. And so when they're traveling up the BC coast, they have these shifting ravens. So there's all these kind of thrilling things that are interwoven into the books.
sucked in already just listening to you talk about it. I mean, really, I mean, I mean, there's so much going on within the series, and can you give how? I mean, are they fairly lengthy? Each one of the books.
They're 90,000 word novels, so they're
Oh,
they're they're full size. Yeah, they're full size books and pretty complex. Yeah.
definitely. It would have to be with all the different layers that you have. And
Mhm.
it sounds like there's the element of modern day Wicca and paganism druid culture that's woven into with the sabbats and all of
Mhm.
that that's woven in as well. So
Mhm.
how did you research that?
Well, I've been delving into Wicca and Druidry for quite some time. So yeah, so some things I've actually, I dabble in myself, and I do a lot of reading. Yeah. And
Oh.
I research everything. So
Yeah.
I create all the rituals, I create all the spells, all the clothing. Like it is a whole kind of a world. And that's why I've started calling it mythic fiction, because it's really about myth, which is my thing more than anything else, I think.
That's so
Hmm.
it's so much fun, isn't it, to
Hmm.
write by your own rules and create this world and walk alongside the characters as you write them and put them
Hmm.
through some not so fun stuff and some fun stuff as well.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So that is, would you say that that's probably the best part of the whole series is getting to experience the same things that your characters do?
Oh, for sure. When I started writing these, it was to escape. I was teaching high school. I'd been, I'd been teaching high school for like, I taught high school for about 20 years, and I'm an introvert, and not a great place for introverts, really.
Right.
It's not. So I was coming home and just being like watching Big Bang Theory, on the couch, just not in a good state. And I created these and started writing. I would write on weekends and all through my summer. So they became really they're part of my life.
You get attached to your characters a lot. Like
So
a lot.
attached.
So,
Mhm.
just for the viewers that are watching, is there a level of spice within these books? Is it 18 plus, new adult?
Right. I'm
Okay.
glad you asked that, because nobody's asked me that. And it's, yeah, something
Yeah.
that I have thought about.
New adult has become such it's a very fast growing genre, but it's relatively new and one that's been needed for a while to
Mhm.
distinguish between young adult and then the new adult, where you didn't have that genre before. You jumped straight into contemporary women's romance or
Mhm.
epic fantasy, but now we have new adult fantasy, college fantasy, so I think that was a much needed genre to
Mhm.
be put in
Mhm.
place. And you see a lot of books that are in that genre. So I wanted to make that clear to audiences because it does
Mhm.
contain magic and you might think maybe this is a YA series and it is not. So
Well, the thing with YA is like 12 to 18, which is ridiculous, because
no.
kids kids are so different between 12 and 18. So um, they're definitely new adult, but also I think, like, because I taught high school for a long time, I think that, older teens are fine with this. Now, I will say Dylan is only 19 in the first book, and Maggie, who's the young girl that gets caught up in the charm, is 17. So I think teens are reading them, and
Yes.
it's a coming of age for her. Um, yeah, I mean, when you look at what teens are watching on TV, I don't think there's anything in my books that's any different than anywhere else. Also, my books are LGBT, which is pretty amazing. And in the Scottish book, several of the gay characters show us the effects of homophobia. So there's some really interesting things that happen in there.
From a social point of view, it's sort of a social
Yeah.
commentary
Yeah.
underlying there. I love
Yeah.
that you have the LGBTQ plus representation in there.
And so, yes, there's language. The language fits the characters when you're writing in point of view. This is what happens. And also, I just want to say, it's interesting writing sex scenes. As I said, I don't plan, so I often will be like going through my thing and I go, oh, here we go. We're going to have another sex scene.
Right.
But the sex scenes are all there for a reason. So there's nothing that's gratuitous. There's always consequences. And in the first book with Maggie, because she's very innocent in the beginning and then gets caught up in the charm and everybody starts to act out, she takes on some behaviors and has to process that. And I think for a lot of like older teens, I don't know so much about young boys, probably the same, but with young girls, sometimes, you get into these situations. I certainly did. And then you find yourself in a situation and you're going, whoa, this is not what I wanted to happen. And so she has to process that. And I think that's kind of important too.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And, we also have, older adults that are reading young adult. So you find that really, honestly, I would say that fantasy transcends age groups.
Oh, it does for sure.
So
a young adult, a lot of people, a good young adult novel goes with all ages.
Yes, no, I absolutely agree. But I have to ask, Estrada being the main character, how was the experience of writing from a male point of view?
Well, here you go. I feel like I've always been gender fluid, and I think many of us are gender fluid. So I think we all have the male and female going on inside us. I didn't find it difficult at all. I just kind of go into character with him, and I ask him questions now because he's one of my muses and he's my friend. I know him really well, and I'm really connected to him as well.
That makes it easy.
It does. And I have, he has conversations, like often I'll be out walking in the woods and Michael and him are going on in my head and they're chatting away about, and I'll just come home and write that conversation. And that was a lot of my favorite times with them. So it wasn't a problem for me, really. I have pretty keen imagination, so I can kind of go where I need to go.
I hear other authors say that writing from a different gender standpoint is difficult for them. So I was just curious how you felt about it. But I have written from a different gender standpoint, and I kind of feel about it the same way that you do. It's very easy to as long as you have those characters very redolent and resonant in your mind, and you can carry on conversations with them from an author's point of view, then it's easy to write from their perspective.
And I know how he's going to react.
Yep, there you go. So you kind of already leaked this a bit by saying a 7-book series, but does the series end here, or will there be more?
Oh, I was referring to J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter. There's going to be more. Yes, there will be more, because at the end of To Kill a King, there is a big cliffhanger there, and the ending was a huge surprise to me, actually. And because I don't plan anything, and I'm writing in the moment, when I got to the end, I'm like, really? Is that? You're kidding me. And so he was delighted with the ending. And he's already started talking to me about what he's going to do. So I can't say anything more than that. But yes, there's definitely a 5. And there's also some like unanswered pieces throughout the series that I think probably will need to come out somehow. Like his father disappeared when he was 12, and that's had a huge impact on him. And we never quite figured out what happened to his father, and I'd like to know.
So there are some different aspects that are still yet to be explored. That's great.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, I know it's hard to let your characters go too, at the end
Yeah.
of a series. So I'm glad that that we'll be seeing more from the series itself. So guys, if you haven't already checked out Wendy's series, go ahead. It's the perfect time to get invested, and because there's already 4 books out, and then I know you've got to be working on the 5th one. Um,
Mm.
But what would you say the hardest thing has been about this series that you've cultivated for so long?
The hardest thing, I don't know. I mean, they just keep with me. I guess trying to get them out to people is the hardest part of it because I get so excited about them. And when people read them, they're like, oh my God, this is awesome. But getting people to read them because there's so many books out there is huge. I just want to add that and see what you think about this, but you know, my business coach is a psychic and I am a little bit too. And so I studied mediumship and psychic development with her for a whole year,
Neat.
not long ago. And we just had a meeting, and one of the things she talked about was oracle cards. So I started thinking this would be really great to take all the mythic stuff that goes on in the books and create the Hollystone myth and magic cards as inspirational cards. What do you think?
I think that is a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Um, that's neat. I know that a lot of authors do candles or things like that, but man, to have your own oracle
Mhm.
deck or a tarot deck would
Mhm.
be that is themed with the Hollystone would be so neat to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I just actually started on the weekend making a list of things that are so symbolic or whatever. So you could like pull the
Within
Estrada
the
card. And what
series.
does that mean today if you pull the Estrada card? The magician or the
I
high
love
priestess.
that idea. Like when you get that done, send me an email. Let me know
Okay.
because
Okay.
I would love to get my own deck.
Hmm.
Really, I think that is a really neat idea. Thank you for sharing that with me
Thank
and
you.
with everybody watching, guys. Definitely check out Wendy's website and everything that she has on there and the series as well. And this has been such an awesome uh, conversation to learn about the books and about your process and the characters and everything. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Anna. It was a great conversation. I had a good time.
Okay. Well, everyone stay safe, stay healthy. If you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on more great, amazing authors like Wendy that will be on the show. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.